Hello students. So today I will just talk about differences between innate and adaptive immunity. So we can divide this immunity in two types, innate and adaptive immunity. So innate immunity includes built-in molecular and cellular mechanisms that are encoded in the germline and are evolutionarily more primitive, aimed at preventing infection or quickly eliminating common invaders. This includes physical and chemical barriers to infection, as well as the DNA encoded receptors recognizing common chemical structures of many pathogens. In this case, rapid recognition and phagocytosis or destruction of the pathogen is the outcome. Innate immunity also includes a series of pre-existing serum proteins collectively. So collectively they will be termed as complement. The serum proteins which are in the inactive form and in the serum and a part of immunity are termed as complement, and they make complement system. So that bind common pathogen associated structures and initiate a cascade of labeling and destruction events. This highly effective first line of defense prevents most pathogens from taking hold or eliminates infectious agents within hours of encounter. So the recognition elements of the innate immune system are fast, some occurring within seconds of a barrier breach, but they are not very specific. They are not very specific and are therefore unable to distinguish between the small differences in foreign antigens. So basically we can say innate immunity is a part of immunity that that is produced by our body with the help of different barriers. For example, anatomical barrier, for example, skin protect our body against infections. There is epithelial lining which is secreting mucus of respiratory tract and other tubular organs. So they also protect our body against pathogens and is part of innate immunity. And also there is physiological barriers. For example, there is complement system, interferons, there is acidic environment of the stomach, inflammatory barriers and phagocytic barriers. They protect our body against pathogens and it's a part of innate immunity. So it's just general line of defense and first line of defense, and it is very fast in action. For example, skin protect our body against these pathogens because it will take no time. A second form of immunity known as adaptive immunity is much more attuned to subtle molecular differences. So this adaptive immunity is also termed as acquired immunity. This immunity is that immunity which our body will get when our body will be exposed to that pathogen, maybe in the form of vaccine or maybe just by natural routes, natural methods. When the pathogen will enter in our body will start to recognize it and will produce this immunity against it. So a second form of immunity known as adaptive or acquired immunity is much more attuned to subtle molecular differences. So it can differentiate both these pathogens in much more detail. This part of the system which relies on B and T lymphocytes. So the cells which are taking part and playing an important role in adaptive immunity are the B cells and T lymphocytes. B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. And T lymphocytes are of two types: Th lymphocytes are T helper lymphocytes, and T cytotoxic lymphocytes. Takes longer to come on board but is much more antigen specific. Typically, there is an adaptive immune response against the pathogen within 5 or 6 days after the barrier breach and initial exposure, followed by a gradual resolution of the infection. So, adaptive immunity will take time. It will take about 1 week or even more to produce an effective immune response, while innate immunity is take place in within seconds. It's fast in response, but innate immunity is just general line of defense, first line of defense, and adaptive immunity is more precise. But initially, it will take time to develop. But when it is developed, then it will be there. Then it will not take so much time to respond. But initially, it will take 5 to 6 days after the barrier breach and initial exposure, followed by a gradual resolution of the infection, so that here the clonal selection will take place. Adaptive immunity is slower, partially because fewer cells possess the perfect receptor for a job. The antigen-specific randomly generated receptors found on B and T cells. It is also slower because part of the adaptive response rely on prior encounter and categorizing of antigens undertaken by innate process. So after antigen encounter, the T and B lymphocytes undergo selection and proliferation. So the main thing which is taking part, this why it is taking so much time is that it needs selection and it needs the cells to increase the number so that they will proliferate, and described earlier in the clonal selection theory of antigen specificity. So basically this clonal selection process is taking place, and for this purpose it needs some time. But when it has done its job, means it has developed these cells which are able to recognize that a specific pathogen, then they will create memory and they will live there for the whole life and they will protect our body against that pathogen. Although slow to act, once these B T cells have been selected and have honed their attack strategy, they become formidable opponents that can typically resolve the infection. So the adaptive arm of the immune response evolves in real time in response to infection and adapts to better recognize, eliminate, and remember. So adaptive immunity is very good, although it takes more time initially, but it has this ability to recognize, to eliminate, and to remember the invading pathogen, so that even if that pathogen will come after 1 year or 2 years or 10 years or 20 years, the adaptive immune response will be ready to cope with that pathogen. So it will recognize it and will help to eliminate and also will remember. So these are the attributes of the adaptive immunity or acquired immunity, that it will recognize, eliminate, remember, and will be able to differentiate it, this self from non-self. So adaptive responses involve a complex and interconnected system of cells and chemical signals that come together to finish the job initiated during the innate immune response. So the goal of all vaccines against infectious disease is to elicit the development of a specific and long-lived adaptive responses so that the vaccinated individual will be protected in the future when the real pathogen comes along. So the goal of the vaccine, what is vaccine? Oh, so vaccine is basically this part of the pathogen or maybe heat-killed pathogen or attenuated pathogens. When it will be injected in the body, then it will induce the immune response and adaptive immune response will be produced against it. So anyway, this immune response, adaptive immune response is very good, and these vaccines have a remarkable role in the protection of our body against pathogens. So we have two types of immunity: innate immunity due to general body features, for example, anatomy and physiological barriers, and adaptive immunity, the immunity which is slow but which has this ability to recognize and eliminate and create memory response, and that is adaptive immunity or acquired immunity. Thank you. See you then.